So my first question is, what are the causes of the dramatic increase in a number of foreign fighters who come to join the Islamic State from European countries? Why it happens now, in your opinion? And if the spreading ideology of the Islamic State is the only underlying cause, or if there are any other factors?
Yeah, there might be actually considered 2 points. One point, which I mentioned today during the conference, is that we still don't have objective picture about what's going on, due to the fact that the secret services and law enforcement agencies are not willing to share the information with international organizations such as Europol, because they are first of all paid for protection of the national interest, not sharing information with the others. And it's in particular changed after Charlie Hebdo, because before that we just received a limited number of the contribution with regard to the foreign fighters. And in February, for instance, there was by 1,000, I would say, percentage increase in the contribution about the names related to the foreign fighters. So I am still of the opinion that still we don't have 100% objective picture what is the real figure, and what are the numbers of those who travel to the war zone and coming back and pose the threat to the EU. Secondly, the radicalization, I think it has something to do with the war ongoing in the Middle East, in particular in Syria or on the territories which are occupied by an Islamic State, covering even Iraq and as well as Libya. Yeah, so Islamic State using very aggressive propaganda tools in a very professional way, which is addressed to actually, I would say, young generation in the European Union, and they obviously find followers, and they either follow them staying in the EU, to some extent they pose threat as well, or they travel, they are recruited, travel to Syria, get training, funding, coming back, and actually are a threat to the security of the EU. Yeah? Mm-hmm. So development of the war and objectiveness of the overall information.
Thank you. How do you see the future of European Muslim communities? How to prevent young European Muslims from radicalization into militant Islamism?
Yeah, I think it's difficult. It's a very easy question, but answer as such might be difficult today. With interest, I was listening to the intervention of one panelist, of the panel I participated. But for me, I am more or less a security guy. We focus on the security issues. For us, it's very difficult to estimate how the Muslim community might be developed. But as my personal opinion, when we see the immigration flow, there are all Muslims coming to EU, and the question is how long they will stay, whether they will come back when the war is over, back in the countries they come from, or whether they will stay in the EU. Because when you see, for instance, those foreign fighters, they in majority cases come from those minorities who arrived as migrants, their predecessors. So it can be this migration flow definitely might influence the Muslim communities in the EU.
Mm-hmm. And what should Europe do to secure, or in order to provide security for its citizens?
EU, yeah. If you mean member states, or if you mean international organizations, Europol, I represent, is one of the decentralized EU agency, along with Frontex. This is the agency responsible for the protection of or operational cooperation at the external border of EU, or Eurojust, which is our sister-in-law, I would say, responsible for coordination and support of judicial authorities. And there are plenty of tasks which have been drafted in two, I would say, agendas on security and internal migration, and there are plenty of tasks for member states and for the agencies. And one of the key task is related to our agency, and when it comes to the counterterrorism, we are in the process of setting up of the European Counterterrorism Center, which will make or further streamline capabilities we have already at disposal when it comes to usage of our databases, secure connection tool or databases or illicit traffic on firearms, and as well as our capabilities in financial intelligence. Yeah? So if those tools are properly used and member states provide us with information of high quality and quantity, then we can provide some added value back and initiate investigation, and what is even more important, to prevent something wrong from happening.
Mm-hmm. So elaborating on what you have just said, I have another question. What the return of European foreign fighters back to their countries of residence means for European security forces? You know, what are the main challenges our security forces are
The main
facing?
challenges for security forces when we face the threat by foreign fighters, you mean? Yeah?
Foreign fighters and their return from the battlefield.
Yeah, when they come back.
Syria. I mean, it's even
one of
possible to.
It's I know what I mean. I understand. The problem is because when we compare the attack, September 11, it was coordinated with one command, clear structure. Now this is not the case. They act as lone wolf. They are not connected. They don't have any chain of command. They communicate via internet. They use all this modern technology or tools for their communication. They have capacity. They have money. They are trained. They know how to conduct terrorist attack. This might be only question of when, and it's very difficult to infiltrate among them or to get some information that they try to prepare such a terrorist attack or even commit such a crime. So it's challenging, very challenging task for intelligence services and all law enforcement agencies just to prevent. And there is one imperative: we have to make better use of the information which are already at disposal in different databases at international level. Because we might have information to one foreign fighter stored in different databases in different countries, and they simply don't know about each other. When we put this information together, we can prevent terrorist attack from committing. So we need better cooperate, we have better share information, we have to create even more suitable condition for sharing of highly classified and highly sensitive information. And member states and law enforcement who are supposed to share information should feel full ownership and full control of information provided somewhere else, for instance to Europol. So we use very secure systems and some kind of purpose limitation or usage limitation of the information which is contributed. Yeah. So better coordination, better cooperation, especially at the national level, and better sharing of the information. Otherwise, some piece of information can somewhere fall apart, and we could prevent terrorist attack, and it simply has not happened. There was recently one case I just mentioned today during my presentation, which happened on board of train from Amsterdam, by the way, via Hague, where our agency is situated, Brussels and Paris, and the guy has been sentenced for drug crime. He was sentenced, he stayed in prison, and he was released already. So there is some record about him, about his history. He showed very good ability to obtain a weapon, which was illegal weapon, not registered, as well as ammunition. And thirdly, he very frequently communicated on social media, using internet in this radicalized community. But the three pieces of information were not connected. We know only after, when we checked, when the name was checked against the databases of Europol and then by member states, we found out. So the question is, why we didn't know before, in order to introduce some action. Yeah? Sorry, I hope I was clear.
No. I mean, your answers are perfect and
Really?
it's very interesting, and I'm like.
No. I just.
And do we even know how the process of radicalization into militant Islamism evolve? If where it starts, how it develops, if there are any indicators in common, and what's the role of security forces in this whole process?
Yeah, we play some complementarity role in the whole process, but of course we focus on our law enforcement authorities, and this is actually a very broad issue. My personal opinion is, when I see those minorities, when they come over to European Union, and generation by generation, it seems to me that they just are kept intentionally in their own minority, when religious connect them or some links to the source countries they come from. Maybe they don't have the same opportunities to study, to educate themselves. They are maybe a little bit excluded of some social system, so they don't have maybe access to benefits. They cannot get jobs. At the same time, they see what's going back in the country their predecessors come from, and they can link. For instance, if I make example, maybe France being related with some negative development in the country they come from, and it brings them to some desperate situation. Then they open the web page and see very nice emotional video asking them to follow them. Then they can be maybe easily radicalized, because they don't have any values connecting them with the values of Western society. But I am not professional, I am not specialist in this area. I am more security guy dealing with these negative aspects. But this might be the reason as I see myself.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So going back to security issues, what other challenges to Europe's internal security, besides the rise of militant Islamism, do you see nowadays?
Priorities, in broader terms, there are 10 priorities. Europol mandate covers both serious organized crime and terrorism. We act in case such crime is related to at least 2 member states, or 2 member states are at least affected. And at the same time, we prepare some kind of strategic assessment. And based on this strategic assessment, there are priorities in the area of serious organized crime set up by ministers, and then we follow those priorities. So there are actually 9 priorities we have to follow, falling onto our mandate, starting with drugs, synthetic drugs, heroin, cocaine, illicit traffic, production whatsoever, illegal immigration, trafficking human beings, economic crime, manipulation with VIT frauds, cybercrime, property crime, and some others. But on the top, nowadays, there are 3 priorities. And apart from serious organized crime, we deal with terrorism, but it falls into different baskets. We don't have such a strategic assessment mechanism for setting of priorities. So apart from terrorism, and in particular foreign fighters, there are 2: illegal immigration, especially smuggling, illegal immigration, and cybercrime, because cybercrime as such covering almost everything, because it can be used as a crime as a service. And cybercrime has 3 sub-priorities when we deal with online child sexual abuse, abuse of credit card or means of payments, and third one is protection of critical infrastructure and information databases of EU before and just to prevent them from hacktivism. So cybercrime, facilitated illegal immigration as we call it, and foreign fighters. These priorities are on the top and even in the attention of of the politician, and that's why their expectation has been reflected in this political strategic document and are expected to be followed some practical activities in place in terms of prevention and even reaction, arrest, investigation, and so on.
And my last question.
Really?
We are slowly going to the end. Do you think that the conference of the kind we are holding here today on internal security issues is important nowadays?
I think it's always important, and today I jump directly into my presentation without expressing directly my appreciation to the European values for having organized such a event, because it was discussion about the substitution of the director, whether the director would be here or I came, and Radko Hokovský said something about substitution. I just caught the word and just continue with the substitution, that I will try to do my best just to substitute my director. At the same time, I've forgotten to mention very important point, and I would like now underline that I really appreciate such activities. To some extent, I have very good experience with European values, young people, and I have very nice overview, or I think even more or less professional. So you are NGO, also supported a European Commission and even some other entities. It's not easy for NGO, but I see some results, and if you are able to organize such a conference, even attract the attention of counterterrorism coordinator and some other important guests, and just to share their views from all perspectives, not only law enforcement, psychologists, society, ministry, whatsoever. As far as I had feedback from the people in the corridor, it was only positive, because each of such a conference just gives us opportunity to get together and just to listen to each other. And again, it helped me to broaden my overview about what's going on, because sometimes as a police I live in my limited police box. Sometimes it's very refreshing to see to hear the opinion from the others, especially from the prevention area, and so I appreciate. It's a very good activity, and I am ready to support you even the next period of time, because this is the first time of such kind, your conference. I would say Prague Security Forum, and you would like to continue with some kind of tradition. I provided your colleagues already with some input, because in this regional part of Europe, Salzburg Forum is one of the key players. So I would recommend to focus on the neighborhood, or Salzburg Forum, when Slovakia, Hungary, and in particular Austria play important role, and of course Germany. And so this was just some proposal I made both to Radko Hokovský and Jakub Janda. So thank you very much for having been invited. I'm sorry that my director could not arrive, because he's somewhere else in Greece for the time being. So I hope I substituted that Radko Hokovský was satisfied with me. So we will see. So
sure.
Thank you very much.
No doubt about
I hope I answered a little bit all your nice questions.